There's nothing that wakes a person up like pain. There's no such thing as a perfect life. There's no such thing as a perfect offering. Life is filled with cracks. Cracks are tragedies, are setbacks, are challenges. But it's through the cracks that the light gets in.
One of the most difficult things I have tried to articulate over the years is the value in tough times. Because there's extreme value in tough times. In fact, those are the moments that really define you as a human being, can really change your life for the better. But it's very difficult to articulate that. And that's why I'm so happy to be joined today with Rabbi Simon Jacobson, who is a master with his words and philosophy. He is the author of Towards a Meaningful Life, which kind of encapsulates the message of finding meaning in these tough moments. Today's video was made possible by our sponsor today, as always, Mulliganbrothers.com. Get ready for 2024 with the sale now on for the Not a Journal and the Memento Mori posters that remind you that you will one day, in fact, die. That's my life charted out on a poster, and that's a very powerful tool to be woken up to every single morning. And also the Not a Journal, the success journal that actually makes you get stuff done, is linked down below, on sale, ready for 2024. But before that, finding the value in the toughest moments of your life will be one of the most important things you are able to do. Let's dive into this amazing video with Rabbi Simon Jacobson. What's your thoughts on the idea of something bad having to happen to somebody to create that awareness? Is that the thing that happens? Can people find it themselves without that?
Well, excellent question. Look, I'm going to talk about a comfort zone. We all like comfort zones because it makes us comfortable, obviously. But comfort zones sound like innocuous, but the truth is they're very dangerous, actually, for the human condition. Because when you're too comfortable, you're not motivated. So the strange thing is that, as much as we don't like to say it, it's when your system is shaken up and disrupted, is usually when we wake up to deeper realities. You know, if everything's comfortable, I'll sit around on my couch potato, and really do nothing. I don't have to do anything. Unfortunately, and this is the big mystery that no one has really figured out, maybe this is part of God's mysterious plan, that there's nothing that wakes a person up like than pain. You know, when you're comfortable, you're not necessarily, you'll eat and sleep and do your thing. So tragedy, as Leonard Cohen puts it, is that there's no such thing as a perfect life. There's no such thing as a perfect offering. Life is filled with cracks. Cracks are tragedies, are setbacks, are challenges. But it's through the cracks that the light gets in. Because if there's no crack in the egg, the chick will never get out. So the truth is we have to look at pain and suffering not as something we invite and welcome. We prefer not to have it. But if it does come our way, you have to see it as the ability for a new birthing, for like a paradigm shift. And all paradigm shifts happen through some disruption. We hope the disruption is minimal. I'm sorry to hear about your son, but you know yourself what came out of it. And we hoped it could have come without that. Can it happen? Yeah, there are people who have perhaps are blessed with grace and moments of epiphanies and awakenings where something, but often it happens through some disruption. It can be a loss, it can be a death, it can be an unexpected getting fired from a job, having to move, a divorce, a betrayal. As I said, we hope it should be in the minimal, but it's usually the shakeups that cause you to go deeper. I'll quote Warren Buffett. He says that you don't know who's been swimming naked until the tide is out. When the water is high, everybody can be swimming. You don't know who's who. It's when the lights dim and life becomes a little more challenging, that's when you see the cracks. And that's where we're really tested. I mean, I don't like to use cliches, but I'll quote another. I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt that said, I think she said about women, but I think you could say about all of us, that we're like tea bags. You don't know how strong you are until you put into hot water. And then suddenly this little tea bag releases that powerful taste. So I think that's life. Challenges and getting out of your comfort zone is the key to growth. Now, I would advise people, don't wait for a tragedy. Don't wait for a loss. Bring it upon yourself if you can. But you need a motivation. You need a motivation. I could say personally for myself, I've been blessed. I mean, I lost my father, he passed away. We don't say, my mother used to always say, I didn't lose my husband, I know exactly where he is, with it. But my point being is that, but I really have been blessed. I didn't suffer any, thank God, serious tragedies of loss of a young child or loss of anything of that nature or any such tragedy. And may be the rest of my life that way. But I've seen a lot of pain. I've seen around me, family and others. And I deal with it a lot because people come to speak with me. So I would always say, listen, get out of your comfort zone before you're forced to get out of it, because that's the key to growth. And it's always that way. It's competition, it's angst, a certain restlessness that gets you going. So in your situation, I'm sure that you're a different person. You'll never be the same. But it's the cracks that allow the light in. The greatest things in life have come through the pains and agonies and tragedies that we've experienced.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, for me, it did completely change me. I think a book that I did actually find a lot of help in as well was Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. And I'd love the watchers of the show to go read that book. It's not a long read. And there's a striking, the bit that really stuck with me at one point was, there was his friend was having a nightmare, and he was in, I don't know if you remember this part, but he was shaking in his sleep, and it was, he's having this absolutely terrible nightmare, and he was going to wake him, but he thought, if I wake him, he wakes up to a much worse situation than the nightmare he's going through right now. And that for me explained, or had an impact on me massively, of what these men were going through at the time. And then the experience of resilience and very stoic philosophy that Viktor Frankl had in that moment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the book, but also maybe some of the takeaways from it. I mean, what was the book about?
Well, like the title indicates, Man's Search of Meaning. Man in Search of Meaning. And actually, I wrote a book called Toward a Meaning for Life, so I have a special affinity to that. It's the idea that, I'll just use my own example. You're a ship at sea. And if you're lost at sea, you have no way to figure out how to navigate. And then a storm strikes, and you're lost altogether. And you could even capsize, you can drown. Meaning and purpose is the navigation of our lives. It transcends our joys and our pains. And that's why a person of meaning, who has meaning in life, is not necessarily going to suffer less, but the suffering will be more bearable. The suffering will be more bearable because they know there's deeper purpose and something will come of it. He talks about the Holocaust, even though he developed these ideas before the Holocaust, but it was all confirmed because he said, I saw people suffering in the worst possible way. And the same suffering, everyone, and yet there was some that had more resilience. It was those that had deeper philosophy, that there's a deeper purpose to life. And they didn't develop that necessarily during their suffering. They had it beforehand. They just in some way had an additional resource to navigate, because that deeper meaning allowed them to hold on to that even when everything seemed lost. An element of hope, of optimism. But if you have no destination, if you have no direction, then when the storm comes, what's the difference between a good swimmer and a bad swimmer? You see it during a storm. A bad swimmer is going to fight the tide and won't know how to navigate, and will ultimately get exhausted and simply lose strength. A good swimmer won't fight the tide, will just flow with the flow, go with the flow, swim along until the storm ends. So it just gives you an additional perspective that allows you to not find the answers to the big question of why, but the way I would like to put it is that the question is not why bad things happen to good people. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And that's the people of meaning ask that question. They don't focus on the why, because they know they'll never find the full answer. But the question is, what am I going to do about it? I'm not going to allow myself to get paralyzed and allow a second death to happen. Not just the loss of whatever loss I have, but also losing myself. And they make sure to insist to continue to thrive. There's actually a powerful verse in the Bible which is about the exodus from Egypt when the Jewish people suffered greatly in maybe the first documented institutionalized slavery and genocide. The story of Egypt, Egyptian slavery, talked about thousands of years ago. It's a great verse, a very powerful verse. As they were afflicted and they suffered, in direct proportion to that, they thrived and they flourished. So it was their affliction that actually brought out the best in them. Now again, we don't want affliction and we're not trying to justify it. As I said, there's no answer to the why, but there's an answer to what am I going to do about it. And Viktor Frankl, in his brilliant way, developed logotherapy, which is based in the book Man in Search of Meaning, which helped so many millions of people in discovering that deeper purpose. I don't think anyone who suffered a tragedy that has gotten through it in some way will tell you that I needed to find deeper meaning in my life. It's the only way I was able to manage. If not, the trauma, the tragedy is just too overwhelming. How do you manage? So there has to be some bigger picture that you so-called submit to, surrender to, and that allows you to carry on.
It's such a hard thing to articulate. Like I struggle to tell people that, the worst thing that ever happened to me also led to some of the best things. It led to the most growth for sure. Is there a way of articulating that? Because there's a lot of people right now who may feel that they can't overcome this thing, or they've buried it. Is there value in trying to go through the process, get to the other side?
You have to listen. The only way, what they say, the only way out is through. You can't avoid it. Once something has happened that is a tragic event, a loss, a death, or anything that is a setback, some people numb themselves. You just self-medicate, you numb yourself, you distract yourself. But that doesn't mean the pain's not there. It just means you're not feeling it. It's like someone that kills their nerves. So it's not going to last. So the fact is, there's really no way out. It's like, I'll cry. Like one great scholar or teacher told a student who had a tragedy, he said, I don't have answers for you, but I can cry with you. Tears are very cathartic. They're very healing. There's nothing wrong to feeling that I'm not okay. It's fine. Some people just need to know that. They think, if I'm weak or vulnerable or I'm hurt or I'm crying, something's wrong with me. No, there's nothing wrong with you. That's exactly what is natural. That when a person suffers, cry. And you don't need answers. And find people that will hold your hand. And if you're a person who's supporting someone who's gone through that, hold their hand, be there for them. You don't need to give answers. You don't need philosophies. You don't need explanations. I always say this, the greatest mind cannot speak to a bleeding heart. So it's not you're going to find some type of brilliant concept or brilliant philosophy that's going to explain away a tragedy. Tragedy is just too strong, too powerful for the mind to fathom, let's be honest. The mind cannot deal with it. So you have to go deeper than the mind. And the place that's deeper than the mind is love, faith, hope, meaning, and purpose. And that's what you hold on to for your dear life. And you just forge ahead. And some days are going to be harder and some will be easier. And I'm not going to mince words. I'm not going to say it's all, we all know it's not a party. Sometimes it's very painful. But remember, that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And if you can move from one day to the next, you get stronger, whether you know it or not. And ultimately what will emerge is a new person. A person that you'll see that you went through the fire and you become a more powerful person in the process. I also say, always speak to others who've been there. So you're not alone. Loneliness is a very big problem here because when you suffer, you think that nobody can understand me. Nobody wants to be around a person who's in pain. They'll never get me. Having others that have been there and the empathy that they can bring to the table is a tremendous healing agent. Absolutely. Never underestimate that. Again, we go back, what pain does, it throws you out of your regular comfort zone. So all the tools that you had yesterday are not working. And that makes you feel desperate. Everything I was using, I thought I was in control of my life. And if I wasn't in control, I was able to do this, and I was able to buy this, and I was able to go to this one, And then suddenly you're left completely helpless and completely vulnerable, naked. And all those resources didn't work. And that is very demoralizing. So the answer is find deeper resources, and they're there. Now you need to dig deeper. There's really no option. And that's really, that's what it comes down to. And allow others in that want to help and could help, and reach out to others. Don't isolate yourself, because isolation and loneliness just exacerbates and makes the problem worse. Because then you like marinate in your own pain, and just reinforces again how bad things are. You need to be around people who have been through it, who have an optimism, hope. And I'm not talking about naive, just people who understand life, have seen the pains of life, but also seen the strengths that come from it.
For me, this is one of those messages that I've always tried to articulate. When I lost my son, at the time, I didn't realize that it was one of the most valuable moments in my life. And as ridiculous and difficult that might be to hear for people, it really is. Only now, knowing that, looking backwards, do I understand that, but it's also very difficult to articulate. It's also a message that maybe you might not be ready for. If you're experiencing difficult times right now, I think it's about having faith, finding support, understanding that one day it will be okay. But it's not to say that there is going to be a silver lining. That's quite a difficult message to receive. But years after everything had happened to me, I started to realize that none of this, Mulliganbrothers, the Inspire Change movement, would have happened unless I'd lost my son. I just wouldn't be doing this, because this is literally the reason why I did it. Inspire Change for Jacob. That's what happened to me. But yeah, it took a while. It took a moment for me to realize that. I think all you can do right now is be on this journey. But when you are ready to see the lesson and to acknowledge the lesson, go for it. You know, it's very important to embrace it. The way I put it is, the harder the test that you have had to go through, the stronger, more intelligent, better of a person you have to be to get through the test. And for me, that kind of reassured me that once I'd got through these difficult times, I would come out with different knowledge, different understanding, a different way of being. And yeah, I hope this articulated that for you in this video. But I also recommend going to buy Simon Jacobson's book. And you know, I'm not told to say any of this. I just think it's an extremely valuable book, linked down below. I'm reading it for my second time right now. Guys, all of this was made possible by your support at Mulliganbrothers.com, where you can now get ready for 2024 with the 2024 sale, linked down below, where you can get the Memento Mori posters that remind you you're gonna die. This is my representation of my life right here. I fill that in every week, and I'm reminded how precious my time is and how much I've used, but also I don't know which square I'm gonna stop at. It could be up here, it could be down here, I don't know. And that's why I live with passion and purpose. They make great gifts for the new year, so go check them out down below. And also the Not a Journal, a success journal that actually makes stuff happen, is linked down below as well, now on sale. Get ready for 2024. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed and productive day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.